Hello and welcome to the IMFG Quarterly Market Update for December 2021. My name is Angus, Dockrill, one of the co-directors of IMFG. Joining me today is Dr. Steve Garth, our independent member of our investment committee. Happy New Year, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Angus. Happy New Year to you and to everyone watching.
Well, 2021, for all that's been said about it, plenty of challenges, the ongoing impact of this pandemic, concerns around inflation. How are markets reacting, Steve?
Well, when you have a look at the Australian market, Angus, and here's the ASX 200, to a large extent, it's ignored all the bad news that we've had throughout the year. The market's up 17.2% for the year. Now, that's about double what the average return is over the last 50 odd years. So it's a phenomenal return for the Australian market. If you look at the last quarter, you can see that is flat, and that has got to do with Omicron.
What I'm hearing is 2021, for all its challenges, had actually a remarkably positive year.
Yeah, it's a very strong year. Like I say, 17.2% is a fantastic return.
And what are we seeing in global markets, Steve?
Well, Angus, if you thought that 17.2% was a great return in Australia, have a look in Europe. That market's up by 25% in Aussie dollar terms, and the US market's up by about 35% in Aussie dollar terms. So when we have a look at the quarterly and annual returns of Australia and the global markets, you can see a fantastic return there. It all speaks to being diversified across Australia and international shares.
Remaining diversified and staying in the chair.
And staying in the chair. We should just point out, Angus, it's not all good news. If you have a look at the emerging markets here, you can see that they're negative for the quarter and not much of a return. Now, that's all got to do with China. China makes up about 40% of the emerging markets, and China is down 18% for the year, and that's due to an economic slowdown in China.
And help me understand, I mean, it's all great news with the stock markets in broad terms. What's happening in bond markets? We hear about inflation and these kind of concerns. Could you give us an insight onto what's happening there?
Yeah, well, as you sort of led me to, Angus, bond market not so well, and it's due, as you said, to concerns around inflation. So as the market starts thinking about increased inflation, yields go up. When yields go up, bond prices go down. And so you can see in the chart here that we've got a negative return from Australian bonds and global bonds over the quarter and over the year. And of course, cash, as I'm sure everyone knows, is zero at the moment. So that is unusual to have a negative annual return in bonds, but it's not unprecedented.
And what does that mean in terms of their role in a diversified portfolio?
Well, why don't we just have a look at the long history of stocks and bonds, just from an Australian context, but it works anywhere in the world. And you can see on this chart, as I mentioned, it's only been 2-3 times that we've had a negative annual return in bonds over the last 40 years. So it doesn't happen very often, and it's not very big when it does happen. But you also see that the following year, bonds typically, are positive. More importantly, Angus, is when equities fall, that's when you see bonds being positive, and that's why bonds are in the portfolio. They're not there as a driver of returns, they're there to protect the portfolio when equities fall.
And manage risk, which is a good reminder in these years where there are such high positive returns. It's not just the return, but it's also how you balance that with risk. And sounds to me that bonds will, albeit in a low return environment, still have a role to play for the diversified investor.
I think that's a good way to put it. There will be a low return for bonds, but they have a very important role to play for the diversified investor.
Terrific. Well, thanks, Steve. That concludes IMFG's quarterly market update for the December quarter. As always, we remain here available to you should you have any questions, and should you have any questions, please contact your IMFG advisor. We wish you the best, the happiest of New Years, and here's to a successful year ahead. Thank you.